afternoon. Welcome to UK Column News. It is the 14th of January 2015 and it's just gone 1 o'clock. Myself, Louise Collins, Brian Gerrish and Nick are here in Plymouth, and hopefully we will be joined by Guy Taylor, who has been in court this morning, so we've just got to wait and hope Guy can join us in a very little while. We had a bit of a storm last night, woke me up. Thunder, lightning, hail.
Snow as well.
Hail,
snow
yeah.
on the high ground, so Dartmoor in Devon looking particularly attractive today with a dusting of snow. There we are. Must have been the squirrels and beavers.
Absolutely.
I'm afraid 100%. I just
100%.
can't leave this subject alone. It
obsessed.
amuses me, the thought that the snow on Dartmoor was caused first of all by beavers and squirrels in Siberia, tundra. According to the Telegraph. Well done, Telegraph. Well, the good news is the weather in UK is variable today. So we've got sunshine in Manchester, we've got sunshine in London area. Shropshire's a bit damp, and it's cold, wet and windy in Pembrokeshire.
It's sunny though in Northumberland.
Sunny in Northumberland. Still no reports from north of the border. We will get those. I think it's only fair. Well, just a quick slide. If we can get hold of Guy. Of course, Guy has been doing fantastic work campaigning in order to expose the fraud, corruption and criminal activity in Britain's courts, particularly in relation to the repossession or the stealing of people's property. So, as Louise has said, we hope he'll join us with a live audio link during the programme. Stay tuned for that, if nothing else. Well, on the subject of courts, brave child abuse campaigner Robert Green appeared in Aberdeen court yesterday. We have not got a full report on what took place, but suffice to say that his bail conditions remain the same. So he's been on bail now for virtually a year, reporting to the police daily. Of course, this is an extremely dangerous man. He's trying to protect children. And there's now another hearing, which we believe will be the final hearing, which will take place in Aberdeen again on the 21st of January 2015. And I know that Robert and indeed members of the public up there in Scotland would like as many people as possible to be present at the court to see justice being done. Just quite extraordinary, isn't it, that we're seeing all of this furore over supposed terrorism, but when it comes to rooting out paedophilia in the establishment and the government, they can't quite manage it. No. We're going to come on to that, I know, Louise, in just a second, but I thought we'd just bring in this slide. Let's remember that David Cameron was happy to travel overseas to support a magazine that has been really successful in whipping up hatred. But we captioned it that here he was posing on the streets with world leaders in France. But this is the same David Cameron that can't get out of his office to stop the murder, rape and abuse of British children. Let's remember what he said. He said with regard to accusations of sexual abuse of children by politicians, David Cameron said, "I think we should move on. Let's move on." So we just reminded you about this man. Of course, he says, well, the only thing to concentrate on at the moment is the fanatical death cult. We actually happen to believe that death cult is the Lib Lab Con, which has been driving all the wars. So is it any coincidence that all of a sudden Mr. Cameron is...
I just want to comment on that photograph. Apparently, I've seen reports that I can't remember what country it is or what newspaper it is. It's taken out all the women. It's photoshopped out of all the women in this picture.
Right.
I can't remember. I think it's a religious. I think it's either a Jewish newspaper or it's some newspaper has for some reason taken out all the women shown in this picture. They've edited it out. I don't know for what reason.
Well, this is a very good statement, and I think we'll have a look at it. We'll do a bit of research.
Yeah, I'll bring it up tomorrow.
During today's news, we're going to be looking at this business. Is what we see, the news, the media, is this real, or are we actually now in the era of total propaganda by the government and I think we've got a few surprises. But let's start with David Cameron, who's suddenly changed his tune on child abuse.
Indeed he has. According to The Telegraph, David Cameron has written to Theresa May to ensure Whips and Conservative HQ cooperate fully with the child abuse inquiry, even though Theresa May still hasn't given a chairman to this supposed inquiry. We still don't know who's going to be on that. But Cameron's agreed to open records of Conservative Whip office and Tory Central office so investigators can look for evidence. No doubt there will be some worried MPs out there now, as apparently there's something called dirt books. Have you heard of the dirt books? They're kept by the Whips, apparently, and it records indiscretion by MPs.
Well, this
so
is, of
those
course,
books will have to be opened as well.
Well,
go
the
on.
ones that remain, Louise, because several sources were saying that, oh dear, some of these papers seem to have been destroyed.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
hence my little caption there that Cameron said, oh, we're going to open the books.
Well, he's only done that because he was responding to a letter from Labour MP John Mann, who wrote to all parties last March, urging them to put all considerations aside and urgently uncover and pass on any information relating to child abuse in whatever party it is. And I'll just read a little excerpt of his letter. It says, in particular, every living whip needs to be questioned by their party on any evidence or rumours that was circulating at the time, and police inquiries ongoing into a number of former MPs of Parliament, with at least 22 names alleged to have been involved. And apparently Mr Mann made reference to 1995 BBC interview with Tim Fortesque, a Tory whip from the 70s, in which he mentioned parliamentary scandals involving small boys. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens from here.
Well, I'm going to stick with the fact that what we're actually watching is an unbelievably carefully orchestrated cover-up, so they're going to leak little bits.
Yeah.
We've got reports now of multiple witnesses accusing politicians of child abuse. We still can't force through a proper police investigation. We still haven't got people brought into court. The only thing that's forced Cameron's hand on this report is the fact that today we've got the child abuse conference in London.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think Mr Cameron is feeling the squeeze, but what he's going to do as much as possible is to protect his political comrades. Well, what's wrong with the country? What is wrong with Britain today? I think
what's right with it?
What's right with it? We can sum it up with an article in the Belfast Telegraph, and here we are. What we've got is a man who is going to receive great funding. Can we bring that one on screen? We should be able to, I think. There we go. So we've got an Ulster comic book writer who is going to now get massive publicity, TV coverage in his Kill God plot. So it's a pilot episode of Preacher, co-produced by County Down comic book writer Garth Ennis and English artist Stephen Dillon, will go into production this summer, tipped as the new Walking Dead. The show's being directed by Seth Rogen and Adam Goldberg, directors of the controversial film The Interview. The show will air on AMC, home of Mad Men and Breaking Bad. And I think Sony is going to put the money in to fund all of this. So here we are. We're now at the state where anything to do with true spirituality, Christianity, absolutely thrown out the window. What we've got, this is, in my view, Satanism, and we've got a real death cult coming in. We're just watching it happen.
Yeah.
So this isn't an accident. And if our viewers haven't seen some of this stuff, just go and have a look at some of the excellent YouTube clips, which are now analysing what's happening in Hollywood and the pop film industry. Really graphic, unpleasant stuff, and of course it's all aimed at the minds of our young children. So I believe that we're able to bring Guy Taylor on live. He's going to give us an update about what's happening in the courts. Let's see whether we can bring him up, and I'll try and bring an appropriate slide up on screen if we can come back to us, Nick. Is that possible? Can we, there we go. Right, let's just bring up a suitable Guy slide. Guy Taylor, have we got you?
Hi, Guy.
You've got it. Have you got it?
Nope.
Okay, we're still waiting to see whether he's
Guy
there.
at all. Should we do another story in the meantime?
Okay, we'll work our way through. Stay with us. Obviously, a connection problem there. Well, this was a story we found particularly interesting today. Came in at the last moment, so we'll just flag it up as a headline. But essentially, we've got The Independent is reporting that activists are taking legal action against G4S because they've discovered that G4S has actually been implicated directly in the treatment of prisoners in Guantanamo Bay. So they took over a contract from an unnamed foreign contractor. So we got the American government running a facility, an unnamed contractor takes the main contract, and then part of that is hived off to G4S. What these people are saying is great. This now gives us the opportunity to actually go for the directors of G4S because they've been involved effectively in the brutal treatment of these prisoners, if not the torture of these prisoners. So this would appear to be good stuff, and people are finally starting to take action, the right sort of action, instead of sitting and watching events unfold. So if we still haven't got Guy, we'll just carry on through the news. No, unfortunately we haven't. So let's follow up with, well, what's MI5 got to say?
MI5, well, this gentleman here, Baron Evans is his name. Well, it's Jonathan Evans, but he's Baron Jonathan Evans, who is an ex-MI5, spoke at the House of Lords yesterday telling them that Britain will descend into vigilantism unless security measures are stepped up to counter the vulnerability and fear that people fear in the wake of the Paris attack. So we've got two stories attached to this. So my part on this one is more ammunition for David Cameron to bring in this snooping bill. The more and more
state control
of listening to every time we visit a website, that's going to be recorded. Every phone call we make, every email we send, all to be recorded by government, and everything we post on social media as well, every conversation we have and every post that goes up on to maybe things like Facebook, Snapchat, I think WhatsApp as well. There's so many now, but it's all going to be recorded. So here we go. This guy now enforcing Cameron's stance on this Snoopers charter. And I think the next story will kind of say it all, because the head of Europol, which is the EU's law, which the EU's law, which is the law enforcement agency, Rob Wainwright has. Is this the right one?
This is up
no,
in
this
the
is
terror
yours.
threat.
This is your one then.
Okay.
Because mine's further down.
What we're going to say is that we're seeing a huge amount of material coming out in the mainstream press at the moment. It's all telling us to be frightened of a terror threat. One moment it's Al Qaeda, the next minute it's ISIS, it's the Islamic State, and then what follows on with this, of course, is more and more media stories where they're actually saying we should all be very frightened, and we've got MI5 chief saying that we're going to have more vigilantes unless the state acts to protect us. Well, I'm not hearing that out.
Can we just get this? Can we get the slide? Because I've got a little bit more of this. If we could have the slide up of this gentleman. Last slide up, Nick, please. Okay, well, he's basically went in front. Sorry, it was my story. I don't know where I was then. But yeah, his name's Rob Wainwright, and he's actually told the Home Affairs Select Committee that Europe faces its most severe terrorist threat since 9/11, and that 3,000 to 5,000 EU nationals were under threat. And as I say, the Snoopers Charter, this again is enforcing for Cameron's claim. But the thing is, Nicky Cleggy Boy doesn't want this to happen.
Well, this of
so
course,
he says.
This is nonsense. It's quite obvious that Nick Clegg is part of the coalition. They're acting together, but for the public, there's this little game of, the Deputy Prime Minister disagrees with the Prime Minister. Well, what country?
He said it's very wrong that people's emails should be snooped upon, and
well, this is the game. This is the game for the cameras. But look at what it says there. Counter-terrorist officers are hearing chatter about abducting serving soldiers. So where is this chatter? Where are they getting it from? It's chatter.
Yeah.
If this was solid evidence, then it would be put up in front of the public. So we think something is being manipulated here in order to drive the clampdown that you're talking about.
100%. And I think we've got Guy Taylor on Skype at the moment, I think. So we need a photo up, Brian, of Guy, if that's okay. Guy, are you there?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Oh, he's there somewhere. Wait a minute. And again, Guy.
There
you
you
there,
go.
Guy?
Guy, hi.
Hello? Hello?
Hi,
Yes.
is that Guy?
Yeah?
Hi, Guy.
What, and hello, it's not Guy, it's Pete. I'm just trying to get my laptop working, but I'm having trouble with it for some reason.
Oh, we're live at the
I
moment,
think they're
so...
trying to call you on the mobile.
Okay, we'll have to cut off there because we're live on air, so we'll move on
Okay.
to the next story.
We're having
I
quite
think
a
they're
day
calling you
today.
right
We
now
obviously
from the
need our £500,000 satellite
Yes, we
dish
do.
for these things. Okay, well, let's go to this one, the Evening Standard.
Yeah, okay. I must say thanks to Ollie for this one. Oxford University Press has laid out guidelines for authors telling them to avoid using pork-related words in cases it upsets Muslims and Jews. And according to the Standard, this was revealed all on the BBC's Today's programme when the presenter, who is a guy called Jim Naughty, announced that he had a letter from his wife's publisher, which was Oxford University Press, advising them that pork-related issues should be avoided at all costs.
Right,
So what are your thoughts?
Well, my thought on this is that we've got another concocted story. So this is something that is going to inflame situation in the country and elsewhere. Where has the story come from? It's come out of nowhere. Of course, the BBC picks it up. So what starts as somebody making a pretty crass decision is then blown up into a
Absolutely.
national story and then thrown back. So if you're a non-Muslim, what's being thrown in your face is that we have to change in order to get this rule in. But are we actually hearing the Muslim community or the Jewish community pushing this forward? Well, we're not.
No.
So we've got Oxford University Press seeming to make a socio-political decision in order to affect the way we're thinking.
Well, the Standard, I think it was the Standard, but in the article it says that Muslims were asked, did this offend? And they said, no, it's about eating pork, and the Jewish people the same. They don't have a bit problem with anyone
don't eat
talking about, I don't eat pork, but
Right.
I don't like it. But they don't have a problem with people talking about pigs. It's just ridiculous.
So, and the Evening Standard, or whoever was it, Oxford University Press, has put it out with a nice cartoon image. So it's pushed out to affect adults in what they think, how they behave.
Yeah.
But you present it as though the average adult needs a little piggy cartoon in order to understand what's going on.
Absolutely.
Well, let's come back into the heart of the matter, and we're going to come back to Julia Middleton, Chief Executive of political charity Common Purpose, and her book Beyond Authority. If you've not read this book, please do get hold of a second-hand copy. Don't buy it new, but get hold of a second-hand copy off the internet and have a read about what this lady has been talking about for many years. And we'll go through it again. She's saying that society is going to be changed along the lines that the Common Purpose future leaders want. How are they going to do this? They're going to set up useful idiots who are going to follow their policy. And what a better example than the one we've just covered.
Yeah.
Useful idiots setting up a furore about the eating of pork, which doesn't really exist, but you're going to put it in the media. And then they're going to use experts. Well, along comes the BBC. The BBC pick up on the story and they're going to ram it home into everybody's household as if the story is real. There's the expert idiots at work. But what's really going on? Well, we're seeing a conspiracy being put together, building coalitions and conspiring. That's not my words. That's the words of Julia Middleton and her charity. And then the nastiness, you need to read the section, but anybody who dares challenge what they do, look at the words, run over them.
Nice lady.
Yeah, nice, run over them, undermine them, go round them, discredit them. So there's no dialogue, there's no proper discussion. Here's this political charity. And then let's come straight back into this one. Her words, Common Purpose needed to get 2 or 3 determined fifth columnists on the inside in every organisation they could get into in order to destabilise the organisation and change the policy. So we wanted to come back on the subject of Nigel Farage, because Nigel Farage spoke out recently saying that we have, I'm afraid, and mercifully it's small, but we do have a fifth column within our countries. So Nigel Farage speaking out, let's have a look at this in a bit more detail. So there's what he said at the top in yellow. UK column pushed out a couple of days ago. We couldn't agree with him more. But we've been warning about common purpose being the fifth column. And we're saying, why won't UKIP leader Nigel Farage expose the real political cesspit that's really attacking Britain as a sovereign state? Why are we saying this today? Because what has Nigel Farage got involved in? He's now talking about the problem of Muslim ghettos in the country. Well, where did the Muslims come from? Where did all the other immigrants come from in the country? Did they fight their way ashore? No, they didn't.
No.
They were invited in, and they're now
Gordon
in.
Brown, was it?
Well,
Tony
we
Blair,
can go
Margaret
back to the
Thatcher?
end of the Second World War when the
Okay.
first wave of immigration from the West Indies came in. And so we have British politicians who made decisions, and now all of a sudden we see people agitating the situation. Now, UK column policy on this, so there's no misunderstanding, is that we need people to work together. Doesn't matter what religion or nationality, we need people to work together to root out the criminals that we've got running Britain at the moment, who are lying, deceiving working people against each other. Now, how can we choose an example to highlight what's going on here? Well, sometimes we seem to be particularly fortunate, and we got sent a very interesting article from The Independent, and of course it ties in beautifully with UKIP leader Nigel Farage. So here we are. This is the headline: Britain has rejected the hatred purveyed by the far right. Britain has rejected the hatred purveyed by the far right, but it goes on to say parts of prejudice remain, subtler forms of prejudice remain. So why were we interested in this article? Well, let's have a look at what was said in more detail. It says, both in its timing and the message delivered, the annual report on the state of Britain's far right could not be more welcome. It paints a picture of a movement that's run into the gutter. The tin pot Führers and sawdust Caesars that lead such groups, to quote the historian Richard Thurlow, have failed to rally the support of all but a tiny sliver of the UK population. The British National Party is down and out. The English Defence League is petering out into irrelevance. Far right group says Hope Not Hate, which compiles the report, are at their weakest for 20 years. So this was another comment. The rise of UKIP has drawn the sting and the support from groups that fall towards the extreme of the political spectrum. So here we see UKIP put forward that what UKIP has done is acted as a damper, so that people, instead of being fired up, are actually now following Nigel Farage along very nicely. What are they looking at? Okay, so we'll add in another comment here. This is out of the article. It says, even if Nigel Farage peddles a base form of Islamophobia, as with his recent despicable attack on a fifth column among Muslim citizens, the party's success owes in part to its censorship of the loonies and racists who periodically rise to prominence through its ranks. So an absolutely vicious attack on UKIP there, run by The Independent. But what is the source of the attack? Well, it's coming through a little organisation called Hope Not Hate. Now, I've been told we have got Guy on the line, so I'm going to break there. We'll see if we can work through with Guy, and then I'll come back and follow through on the story about Hope Not Hate.
Hi, hi, Guy.
Hi, Lou. I'm here with John Hurst. We're at the pub around the corner from the magistrates' court.
Oh, say hello to John from us.
He's here. Good morning. We've had a good day. Guy, I'll tell you what's happened. No, John, finish. Well, cut long story short, Guy applied for the district judge that dealt with the matter of his being kicked out of Bodnam to come to court to produce the papers. And the other side basically conceded. They don't.
Oh dear, we've lost them. And that wasn't John Harris, was it?
That was John Hurst.
John
That
Hurst.
was John Hurst.
Yeah, we've lost them there. So should we just carry back on?
I think what we're going to have to do is we'll carry back on till we get to a
Well, can we not get Guy on maybe tomorrow to have it to go through it all when he's on a better line?
We can do that. I think we'll work on through the news at the moment and see what
Welcome
happens.
to the O2 messaging service.
What's going on now?
Calling is unable to take your call. Please leave your
Sorry about
message
this,
after the
everyone.
tone. To re-record your...
Okay. Right, so let's do a little recap on where we were, and we were talking essentially about reports in the Independent based on a study carried out by Hope Not Hate, but a vicious attack on UKIP and Nigel Farage, despicable attack on the fifth column amongst Muslim citizens. This is what they're going for. So we thought we'd have a little look at Hope Not Hate, and what an interesting organisation it is. So the first thing you find is there's not a lot of information about its people on the website, but here's the chief executive, a gentleman called Nick Lowles, and he was former editor of the so-called anti-fascist magazine Searchlight. Now what's interesting is he's picked up by the media, so we've got a little inset there, which is the Guardian giving him a platform to speak. And
Guardian are good at that, aren't they?
The Guardian, well, of course, where does most of the Guardian money come from? Adverts placed by the public and the government sector. So you could argue the Guardian is really a spokesman for the government. So here he is, ex-editor of Searchlight. I just wanted to jump across to this because a little bit of research showed that he's also not only involved politically and trying to stamp out fascism and the far right, but he's also jumped across to help youngsters. So we've got the Community Alliance Against Sexual Exploitation, and that's been set up with the help of Hope Not Hate, Nick Lowles. And this particular article is particularly interesting because it says in the aftermath of the sex abuse grooming case verdicts in Oxford, the newly launched Community Alliance, which includes Hope Not Hate, the Islamic Society of Britain, Victim Support, the Muslim Council of Britain and Church of England among its network, utterly condemns the actions of the men involved. Well, we thought it was interesting that the one thing the UK column didn't get when we ran, and indeed we're still running, that expose of the vicious sexual and physical assault of youngsters in Oxford and Cherwell Valley College by white abusers, and a vicious campaign by the local authorities against the Muslim who tried to protect those youngsters. We haven't had a single contact from Nick Lowles or his team, and indeed we know that locally in Oxford people from all communities are absolutely puzzled by the fact that the local police will not bring to book known paedophiles, even though members from all communities are reporting it. But nevertheless, there he is, Nick Lowles. So trust this man. He's in The Guardian. He's working to protect children. Doesn't seem to know anything about Oxford and Cherwell Valley College, but there we are. So what sort of organisation does he run? Well, here we are. Hope Not Hate is set up in two parts. The first part is an educational charity, Hope Not Hate Educational Limited. And the second part of it is the limited company, Hope Not Hate Limited. And that was established in 1986. And it was originally Searchlight Information Services. Now, we haven't got time in today's programme to have a look at Searchlight, but if you do your own research, many people said this was a little bit too close to the security services. So it's Hope Not Hate Limited is registered at Companies House, oh dear, as well as with the Electoral Commission. Now, why would they have to register with the Electoral Commission? Well, we had a hint of that yesterday, where campaigning organisations such as Guido Fawkes, for example, he's been targeted by the Electoral Commission, but no problems with Hope Not Hate, because clearly they know they are a political organisation because they are already registered with the Electoral Commission. So if we go the other side, the education part, that happens to have originally been the Searchlight Educational Trust, SET. Nice name there. And what are they into? Well, they're development and execution of our community action and engagement plans, training and education services. So Hope Not Hate is going to educate us. It's going to teach us how to live together in communities. And of course, it's going to root out right-wing extremism. And there's the registration for that part. And that's logged with Companies House and the Charity Commission. Now, this is where it gets mucky because this organisation is not independent in any sense because it actually receives funding from both the British government and trade unions. So what we've seen in The Independent is a report from Hope Not Hate, which people would believe was independent, but actually it's the government criticising other political parties. So let's put that in. Here we've got Hope Not Hate acting politically in attacking two registered legitimate parties. We could discuss what those parties believe in, but the fact is they are legitimate registered political parties, UKIP and BNP. So Hope Not Hate, which is taking in public money from the taxpayer through the government, is being used to be politically involved. It's pretty interesting, isn't it?
It's very interesting.
But
I'm just sitting here thinking, I wonder where all these charities and what registered addresses they are from.
Well,
ever since my chat with Gordon Bowden, I'm just scrutinising every address.
Well, absolutely right. And perhaps some of our viewers and listeners will home in on that and do a little work. But can we prove the funding source? Well, we say yes, we can. So let's have a look at this because somebody's done the work for us, and it was a gentleman called Stephen Green. He'd used What Do They Know to ask a few questions about the funding streams for Hope Not Hate. And so what did he establish? Well, he wrote a letter saying, "Dear Department for Communities and Local Government, please advise whether the DCLG has provided any financial contribution to the organisation Hope Not Hate in 2012-2013. Well, back came a reply. What did that reply say? Well, here it is. The department does not hold any information relevant to your request. Hope Not Hate has not received any funding from DCLG, i.e. the government. Well, that all looks pretty straightforward, but Mr. Green went back again, and this is what he says. As you will see from the link below on the 2012 published accounts, point 9, page 13, under the classification restricted funds, the accounts state that they, Hope Not Hate, have received $63,373 from the Department for Communities for a Building a Communities project. Could you explain the discrepancy? So that's a pretty good letter there. And what came back? Well, oh dear, all of a sudden, back comes the truth. And in the reply from this government department, it says that on the 20th of June 2012, DCLG signed a funding agreement with Searchlight Educational Trust for $66,000. The trust established community partnerships in areas prone to EDL. And here were the amounts. They total $66,000. But the department says Searchlight Educational Trust subsequently changed their name to Hope Not Hate Education Limited. Therefore, we couldn't find the records. But not to worry, because we're satisfied that no funding was used for a political nature.
Oh, well, that's all right then. We don't need to check because we feel okay about this.
Well, the point is that what they were doing was absolutely political because they were getting into communities in order to change people's political views and values.
Yeah.
So we've got a government department funding an organisation which then writes an article through one of the mainstream newspapers, totally misleading. I'm going to say a pernicious little organisation which is there to attack any political parties it doesn't happen to agree with. So we'll finish on this bit here, which is if you start to put things together, We've got Hope Not Hate funded by the government with public money, attacking UKIP and the BNP, but supported by the BBC. But the BBC has been collaborating with Tommy Robinson. So we've got a little tweet by the Hope Not Hate chairman that he's on various BBC news channels this morning. So here he is getting full BBC coverage as if he's independent, but clearly he's not. And then if we have a look at the diagram in the right-hand corner, UKIP column has already exposed that the BBC has been working with EDL leader Tommy Robinson in the first place. And when you ask them who funded the work with Tommy Robinson and a company called Coleus, the BBC didn't want to tell us.
Nice. Great.
I'm going to leave a pause there because
I can't even comment on it anymore. It's just so...
Yeah, so we say, ex-leader, of course, Tommy Robinson later said, well, he'd left the EDL, but the point is that the BBC absolutely working hand in glove with a man who many people would say this is a dangerous individual, apart from the fact he was subsequently put in prison for mortgage fraud. So what's going on? Well, we're going to say it's clear to us that either Nigel Farage doesn't understand what is actually happening around him in politics today, or he's acting as the Pied Piper and leading the body of the UKIP church into the business. The only thing you've got to worry about is a supposed Islamic terrorist threat buried amongst the Muslim community, while what the UK column is looking at is a massive attack on the minds of people in this country by the Lib Lab Con, all three main parties. And of course, they're trying to achieve the clampdown you're talking about, Louise, by saying, well, we need more snooping and more protection to do it. Who's the key man? Oh, sorry, we just covered part of that. Let me just jump through this a second, wait a minute. And we can move on to another part of this story. Is it difficult, do you think, Louise, for people to understand this? Or
No, it's not. Not when you see it put out in this way. It's so in your face. But unless you're aware of, unless you've got a slight inkling, you're just going to fall into and believe it.
We're going
but you know, we just need to keep showing the same things, showing the evidence, I think, and waking up people who aren't awake, and need to put this in front of people, because every time while people are still watching the BBC and ITN and Sky and everything else, reading the mainstream papers, they're allowing all of this to happen, and yeah.
Okay, well, we're just coming a slightly different direction, but the theme's the same. We're going to recap because we were talking about a gentleman called Jeff Mulgan, heavily involved with that Common Purpose Network. But here they were, the Behavioural Insights team, and these are the people. They're in government, alongside government, claim they're independent. These are the ones using the applied psychology to attack our minds. We showed they were linked in with this lot. Nesta, connected into the Rothschild Bank, apparently got our best interests at heart. And here was Mr. Mulgan himself, the chief executive, Nesta. And if you haven't researched it, have a look at the Young Foundation and have a look at the roles that this man has been employed in with chief advisor Gordon Brown, etc. A leadership advisor. But what are they peddling? How to interfere with the way people think. And we also have brought up over the last few days the role of people like Dominic Campbell from FutureGov. And he says, these are his own words, so how do we disrupt organisations? He's talking about getting in and disrupting organisations like local government. But what happens when you disrupt the NHS? That's what's going on. People die. And future government has been working flat out to build up a digital network, which essentially is going to capture private data. And if you look at it from a detached standpoint, is going to assist the state to penetrate every area of our lives. Look at the names of these initiatives. The Casserole Club, this is to help elderly people who can't feed themselves, but you need IT, you need to bring in high-tech data to do it.
Of course you do.
We've got Patchwork, we've got Woodland Wiggle. This is a little video which children in hospital need to be watching. And don't worry, This is all allowing the NHS to collect more and more data on people.
I hope there's no politicians in that video.
Digital pen and form system and patient opinion. We've got a lot of work aimed at the NHS. The lady in the centre there, Sarah Bickerstaff from the International Public Policy Research Organisation, wrote a report on this sort of work by FutureGov. This one I really dislike, Mental Elf, which is supposedly going to be helping people with mental health problems, and another one, ADL Smart Care. So this is what is really driving political and public policy in UK at the moment. Meanwhile, we're driving people into this web of hate with one society at the throat of another, whether it's Scotland versus England, it's Muslims versus Christians, or it's some other group. So do be careful in what you assess. No doubt the royal family can help us.
Indeed. So the Telegraph covering a story that broke on Radar Online, and they're claiming they have Virginia Roberts' diary from 2001 where she handwrites the diary of her sex trip she took with Epstein, and who obviously passed her on to Prince Andrew. The article goes into detail about how Giselle Maxwell fooled Virginia's parents into believing she was on a job training course, and it also lists her daily chores that Virginia had to do. Can you just go through, and I'll just show the article if people want to go and read it. It's fascinating. But yeah, some of her chores included massaging, sex, and getting Jeffrey Epstein dressed. And as I say, everyone go and have a look at Radar Online and have a look at excerpts from her diary.
So the diary's also appeared in other mainstream papers. It's not just on that.
No. Well, they've got hold of the diary, and the mainstream papers have picked it up. So very interesting. We just need to see where this is going, and if it's just pray it's not going to end up like what happened with the Cliff Richard thing, and it all gets collapsed. So let's just. People need to listen to Bill Maloney.
I'm sure if David Cameron's in control, we can all relax.
Yep.
And of course, we've got the links in with the Clinton family.
So, July 2020, Bill Clinton walks his daughter down the aisle in front of family, guests and dignitaries. And one of those guests was Jeffrey Epstein's ex-girlfriend, who's just been mentioned, and his social fixer. And she would go out and get the young girls. Ghislaine Maxwell, she's Robert Maxwell's daughter. And we've already covered how Clinton was close to Epstein, having holidayed with him, but Clinton said that he had cut all ties with Epstein after the arrest in 2006. So why would his partner and social fixer be invited to the wedding? And it's looking like it's already causing problems for poor old Hillary and her presidential run for next year. What a shame.
Well, is it? We're going to watch this closely, because I think you could be spot on. All of this hyped up to get people interested in the subject, and then it's collapsed, and there was no substance in it. It was all conspiracy theory.
Exactly.
And therefore the establishment totally protected, and they can go on doing what they're doing. But you've had a pretty interesting interview with a few people.
Yeah, I interviewed ex-RAF whistleblower Gordon Bowden during the week. We're hoping to get him on this show. And if you want to have a listen to it, just go onto Mixcloud, put Lou Collins Radio Show in, and find out what this sort of rundown building on Finchley Road has to do with money laundering, Mossad, and the UK government money laundering.
And there's some phenomenal and detailed information coming out of the research that they've been doing, but over a number of years haven't been able to get people in a wider circuit interested in what they're talking about. So there's a lot more work to be done. What we are seeing is this fits in completely with the fact that we have had for many years criminal governments. They're involved in everything. They're involved in paedophilia. They're involved in money laundering, money disappearing overseas, criminal companies. This is the real problem as to what's going on in the country. And I'm going to say, hopefully, we might be able to get Guy Taylor with us tomorrow, because, of course, what area is Guy looking at? He's looking at the fact that in courts today, people are having property and businesses, for example, stolen from them by fraudulent documents, and the fraud is being perpetuated through the public sector, it's being perpetuated through the police and the courts. So we are close to the point where we're seeing law and order breaking down in UK. It's not people on the streets causing this problem, it's the people in power and people with power in the establishment. So let's get them exposed. If any of you can manage some hours to research some of the information we've covered today, please do, and we'd be delighted to see what you find. Let's get the lid off the rot at the heart of the British government. So
if people are liking what we're doing and they want to support us, please ask your friends to subscribe and get a subscription to the ukcolumn.org so we can continue doing what we're doing and bring you more videos and insight into dodgy dealings in the UK. And also you can support us by maybe getting a bumper sticker or a t-shirt, and they are available from Carol at ukcolumn.org.
So there we are. Just a last couple of words from me to say I'm getting a lot of emails and telephone calls from people saying I'm disappointed that you didn't get back to me. I haven't received a reply, and I'm going to gently say to as many people as I can, we have now got to the stage where we have so many people contacting us talking about their children being taken, they're sleeping rough, they've lost their homes, they've been beaten up by the police. Their local MP is a criminal. I'm afraid to say that we are swamped at the moment. So we don't forget any of you. Unfortunately, I can't respond personally to everybody that contacts us. We're looking at ways to improve things, but at the end of the day, to help all the people who are hurting out there, we need to get good, honest men and trustworthy men and women into Westminster. That is the simple solution. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.